So, now that we have a better understanding of the basics that form a democracy, I have a question for us, Jordan, that we can obviously take some time to really go over. But do you think democracies work? And by that, I mean, do they achieve what their purpose is? So, before you answer that, maybe the first place to start is looking at what their purpose is in the first place. So, we know democracies are all about giving representation or a voice within government. But why do we need that?
I think the easiest way to start answering that is looking at it almost historically in a sense of where we've come from as like, even just looking at the lens of Western civilization in the last 1,000 years. If you go back to medieval England and then into the industrial era, there's still a large, I'm trying like a bottleneck of power
Yeah, like a
in a sense.
centralization of power. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Centralization of power. And I guess you
Within a
really
few, a small group as well, right?
yeah, a small,
Yeah.
like mostly monarchical systems where it's either held within a family or like through like certain members of a church and like one ruler.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it kind of from there wasn't much say in how the commoners were going to go about their day from the top down. Or sorry, yeah, from the bottom up. Sorry. It was all top
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, got dizzy. And then, but as we go through time and we come to, because a lot of people like to look at the French Revolution as the point where people decided to say, no more, we have to have a say in how government rules us. They're for the majority of people. And it's really from that point we start seeing as a necessity that people should have a say. The majority of people should have a say in how they're going to be represented. The core of the idea is definitely become was born out of practicality,
Hmm.
out of systems of governance like feudalism and authoritarian dictatorships and just absolute monarchies. In certain cases in Europe, we've also had religious monarchies. And in the Middle East, I guess too. But yeah, in both cases, where it's
Hmm.
yeah, states are ruled by very few, and the majority can't go about their lives or only go about their lives based on how those few people want them to live it. So, out of a necessity over time, democracies were born as the way to give everybody in society a small form of representation in how their system functions.
Yeah.
Now, to get to the larger question is what you asked me, what we're going to look at is what is their purpose. So, before we answer that, I'm going to start looking again at their purpose.
Hmm.
And do they serve their purpose? And that is where it gets a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
I mean,
there's
we can, there's so much of that, and we'll obviously
yes,
carry
because
on to,
you can say and you can look at it with a broad brush. And yes, we all, and I shouldn't say we all, but in the Western world, or at least in the developed world, we all have the ability to go vote, whether it's
Mhm.
here or South Korea or Japan. If you're 18 and you're paying taxes, you can vote. So, and I think in most cases too, you don't even have to pay taxes to vote. So,
No, technically not, because I mean, if you
yeah,
didn't
you
make
just
any
have to be a
income,
citizen,
right? Yeah.
right? So, and as we say, that was the basic is giving citizens representation.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like kind of going off of what you originally were talking about there from that historical perspective. Um, I feel like a lot of governments or societies just got tired of having revolutions, right? It's that
Yes,
idea that
yes,
an authoritarian type of regime or government, right? Your monarchies, your dictatorships,
yes,
whatever it may be.
absolutes, whatever.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, absolute governments. Um, Inevitably, they found a time where you you had the citizens of your country, your state, wanting to have a little bit more say, which I think is pretty obvious that that would be a normal case. That if you had a choice, we all want to have a say in how our lives are run.
yeah,
And then democracies kind of have come out of that idea that it's easier to just give people a voice rather than have an authoritative figure decide what's best for everyone, right?
everyone. Yeah,
Because it's always going to have someone getting upset about it. But in a democracy, you still have someone getting upset about it potentially,
Yeah.
but there's some authority behind the idea of, well, at the end of the day, we all got to choose, right?
And I think that's why people always look back to the French Revolution is like that. It's like, oh, well, they went through three monarchies in like 10 years.
Yeah,
And every single one of them ended in bloodshed. It's
yeah,
like, how do we end this cycle of redundancy? Because by
exactly.
that point in European history, at least, and you could even argue most
I
of
think
even the
around
Far
the
East
world, yeah.
runs on
Yep.
have always run on a monarchical system.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's a fair to say besides, really probably besides parts of North America, right? Like,
Yeah, because we're such
and
a
like,
new developed
yeah,
part
like
of
the
the
new
world. Yeah,
world
yeah,
areas of the world, those are probably the only places that weren't, but you can't really even say that necessarily about like a South America
yeah.
either.
Because
It
Brazil's had
really is limited.
kings. Yeah,
Yeah.
Chile's had kings.
Yeah. It's like your Canada, your United States,
I think
your
Mexico's had an emperor at
Australias.
one
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
because they were
Yeah.
part
Well,
of
there you go.
France. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. So it is crazy to think of it like that, but that kind of gives you a bit of an understanding of why you even have a democracy in the first place, right?
first
That
place. Yeah,
need
where
to.
the idea and the core of it comes from.
Mhm.